Well, greetings everyone and everybody watching this video. Well, today I just finished a book called Sabres Over MiG Alley. Well, even though I'm not in school in this video, and of course I'm still not sure about my life as of this video, or in this video, mind you. I mean, this book here was purchased from Sabres in the summer break of 2018, and of course, you know, Sabres, as of right now in Albuquerque, New Mexico, one of the locations is on Carlisle and Manal. And of course, Sabres is a public place, and they have a way to make you keep wanting to come back. And of course, I came back for this book. Actually, I found it, the same day I was there. And of course, bought this book. Now, I don't think I've waited for a few days to buy this book, so I went ahead and bought it anyway. And of course, today, the book is done. Now, the real reason why I did not take the rest of 2018 to finish this book is because I was savoring what was in here. And of course, all that's left in this book is, of course, notes. I wouldn't really care about reading those, but I will read them, of course, sometime when and if, I have to go to bed early, and of course I just have to wind down for the night. And let's see what we got here. Well, within the week that I owned this book, I, of course, made it halfway through. And not to mention that I decided I was going to savor some of the book. Now, the condition is pretty worn, but I fixed it with tape, and it's almost as good as new, because I took this book with me wherever I went. I even did some reading on my own at home, and of course, I even read it whilst waiting for buses, or whatever mode of transportation I needed for the day, and of course I read it whilst waiting for my turn to do my things, of course, in my extracurricular activity, and I've got a lot done out of this book, and I learned more about the Sabre. Not to mention that the Sabre, of course, was lost due to more mechanical failures and malfunctions rather than, of course, combat. There's a page here that explains it. Somewhere in the beginning. I know there's a few pictures in here. Yeah, more Sabres were lost to accidents than to MiGs, as you can see here. Which I understand, because when the F-86 Sabre first saw combat in Korea, she was, of course, undergoing all kinds of, new stuff, and of course new other items as the jet age was accelerating. And of course, Korea was where the jet ultimately saw more combat. And not to mention that I learned about a lot that happened in this book. Like, I definitely learned that, of course, at that time, Soviet airspace and, of course, Chinese airspace were off limits, so nobody could go in there, except for some glory seekers like Joe McConnell, James Jabara, who else? And of course, some other guys, who would fly into the buffer zone, as it's referred to as. The Chinese portion, that is. I think the Soviet portion of the airspace was also a buffer zone. I may be wrong. Now, I learned the name, of a guy by the name of Kenneth Rowe, who had a couple other names. And of course, a couple years after the war ended, maybe even one, the Korean War, that is, when it ended on 27 July 1953, and of course began from, 25 June 1950. Nokum Suk, who is, of course, Kenneth Rowe now, or is, mind you, he, of course, fled from Pyongyang in his MiG, And of course he landed at the wrong end of the field on purpose to avoid being shot down. And of course, first I'm sorry to say this, but he shredded a picture of Marshal Kim Il-sung, exited his MiG, and of course did the typical surrender as you can see here. And he admitted that he was tired of whatever the system was going on in that country, which is of course the communist system, which claims to be socialist. And of course, the DPRK as of now still operates MiG-15s, but they're LIM 5s. Not sure how much longer they're going to operate them for. Now the F-86 Sabre, as you can see here, she's been designed into so many things. Like the F-86D would have a blunt nose right here, and of course some rockets, but no guns right here. And of course, there's the H model would have these as bombs, but they would have to be sheared off. And of course, whatever is here, fuel tank or something, when and if you're going to go in a dogfight in this thing, like I said, you have to shear these off and go right in. This is made by Corgi. And of course, this one by Academy Hobby Model Kits. Now, I made this on purpose because of some stories I make up. And I'm using it as a demonstration model for a few things, like teaching about some basics of flight, and of course dogfighting maneuvers, things like that. Sorry to show Sabre versus Sabre right now, but something like that. Now, of course, many of these guys, in this book, actually had come from the Second World War. Of course, some made it out alive while some didn't. Now, James Jabara, on the other hand, went to go serve in Vietnam, but he was killed in a car accident sometime. And of course, James Robinson, Robbie Reisner, had flown these things as well. Not to mention, he was taken as a POW in Vietnam during their war there. And of course, William Whisner had flown these things, and he was stung by a wasp, or actually a yellow jacket. But then he died. Like I said, I've learned a lot about the Sabre, and of course, this actually came from the FJ-3 Fury, the Navy's equivalent, the United States Navy's equivalent to the F-86 Sabre. And of course, the other branches, interred some of their pilots in flying these things, while some did not come back. Like one Marine I knew for a fact when I read this was flying one of these, and of course he got killed in action. Just like if you've seen the movie Pearl Harbor, where Rafe McCauley went overseas to Great Britain. It was something like that. And of course, I'll say this is a good read. And not to mention that, of course, depending how fast of a reader you are, you could finish this thing in a month, or something like that, or get to the halfway point in a week. And so it's safe to say this. I get the last page, I will say the last paragraph, and that'll be it. Also, if there's any corrections you'd like to see or hear, let me know in the comment box. Something like that. There's, or last sentence, mind you. I'll read. The F-86 was a truly great the F-86 was truly a great aircraft and a classic fighter. Hail to the Sabre! Yes, these. Well, that's all I have for now. I will see you all around.